Good day, everyone. I'm Matt Harrison, and you are listening to the Geary Cast, the Malaga fan podcast for all the Gearys out there. We are halfway through February, and Malaga continue on their quest for that first win of 2025. This time, our boys head a few hours northwards up the coastline to take on FC Cartagena, the team that currently are the league's colista, the team that sits bottom of the league. Can Malaga batten down the hatches in the naval city of Cartagena and get those much-wanted 3 points, or will they continue to be all at sea in 2025? And speaking of the Navy and the ocean, there is no chance of us being lost at sea in today's episode as we navigate the choppy waters of Malaga Club de Football chat and news, as I'm joined by a fine navigator in the form of my GearyCast co-host, Nick Bell. Ahoy, Nick Bell.
Ahoy, hoy, Matt Harrison. You well?
I'm very good. I'm here. I've had a bit of a haphazard week with the GearyCast after last week, leaving my MacBook and a pile of year 10 exams and not being able to record. And then I did record a sort of Vamos episode on the weekend, and the thing I usually use to record, the quality was a bit shit, so I couldn't really use it. So apologies to anyone that I spoke to on Saturday and interviewed, and I thought it would be a really cool episode. There's some fun stuff on there, but yes, my shitty phone and the app, it wasn't up to scratch. But I'm here tonight, so it's nice to be back. How are you, Nick?
Yeah, keeping well. I think I said when I spoke to you yesterday, a little bit tired, but such is life. But the evenings are getting lighter, and that always helps. And it's almost the weekend, and it's almost football being back as well. Always good to get Malaga on the horizon if we keep talking about nautical puns.
Yeah, just going away from the nautical puns. I'm not sure because I think we said we might not be on YouTube this time. So I'll just describe something. I don't know if you recognize the shirt, Nick.
I'm going to say that is a Queen of the South shirt or Queen's Park shirt. I'm trying to read it more than anything.
Queen's Park shirt, who obviously beat Rangers in one of the great Scottish Cup sort of underdog wins this weekend. I've got this bought for me by a man who once played for Queen's Park, the Drinks in the Tavern, Scottish Bob. I mentioned something about this shirt, and he went and got me one when he was back in Scotland, like months ago this was. And I thought, they've had a big result on the weekend. I'll wear it to sort of perhaps bring some good vibes to Malaga. And then I thought, actually, it's black and white, a bit like Cartagena. And Cartagena are the underdogs, and these guys have just been done an underdog win. So I don't know why this is how this.
It is very Cartagena colours, actually. Now that you mention it, even the trim is very much in the burgundy, or is it the pinks? Where my eyes aren't what they used to be.
It's quite crimson red. Actually, it is very red. But you're right, it is a bit Cartagena-y, which I only realised about 5 minutes before we press record, and I didn't want to say to you, I'm going to go get changed. Actually, it seemed a bit weird, but well done to Queen's Park anyway, who have sort of become my adopted Scottish team thanks to Scottish Bob buying me a shirt. But we're not talking about
the surrounding areas also being quite a nautical place and things like that. So the parallels just keep on coming, Matt.
Yeah, it was quite nice as well, by the way, to say ahoy to you, because as I think I've mentioned many times on this podcast, I used to live in Slovakia, and that is literally how you say hello in Slovakia, ahoy, which is also quite funny because it's a landlocked country. So you walk down the street going ahoy, ahoy. It was fun. So it was nice to have that feeling again. But let's go back to the south coast of Spain for now, and not much news this week, but I'd say the thing that's grabbed headlines in the past sort of 48 hours is the interview the Mayor de la Torre did with Ser Deportivos, mainly around the 2030 World Cup prep and things to do with the new stadium. I'll just run through perhaps some of the headlines and the bullet points of it, and then you can maybe jump on board whatever you want with it, Nick. So he did mention that time is tight now to get it done, but it will be done. We will have a new stadium. That is the plan. We will move to the Athletic Stadium sometime in 2026, where he has said that he will, or the city and the club, I guess, will collaborate, and they'll try and make the Athletic Stadium have enough sort of temporary seating and makeshift stands to fit in 26 to 27,000 season ticket holders, which it seems that's very ambitious, but he said he's going to do it. He sort of mentioned as well, like part of the reason there's been a bit of stumbling towards putting a plan together is because of the ownership, or in a way, the lack of ownership of Malaga Club de Football at the moment, with Sheikh Al Thani still phased out. And, you know, it's not like some of the other clubs that have owners that want to build new stadiums for the long-term future of the club. It's very much being put on the city and the local authorities. So that's been complicated. Of course, he also talked about like logistic issues with the basketball stadium at Cartagena, which is Martin Cartagena. I always get the first name wrong. Apologies, but they're very close to each other, pretty much next door to each other. So, you know, could there be congestion if Unicaja are playing at home the same time as Malaga? Which, again, he spoke about. He was saying things like, "Oh, we can organize that they don't play the same time." But again, there's two different competitions, two different TV deals. I don't know how much power the city would have to stop that. But yeah, I guess, Nick, this is all sort of being prompted. This I wouldn't say panic, but this perhaps talking of action, at least, because of the sort of this sort of below the surface threat to Malaga hosting games in 2030, because Valencia has been talking itself up as though it's going to host some games, and they've started work again on the new Mestalla. So what do we think about what do you think about the 26 to 27,000 seater Athletic Stadium?
Well, it seems to be the year that politicians can just say whatever they want and put it out in the ether, and everyone's just got to suck it up. I think logistically it is possible, but you know, it's not the undertaking that he described it to be. You know, putting up temporary stands for up to 30,000 people. You know, it's going to be covered in red tape to begin with, and then, like you've already mentioned, there's a logistical nightmares, a lack of parking, a lack of resources. What happens if Unicar had at the same time? There needs to be some serious thought into this, and a solution provided sooner rather than later. There's one that would be staring you in the face, and it's not the one that we want to do, but it's a better alternative than this, and that's a stadium share with a near neighbour, whether it's Cordoba or whether it's Granada. If you've got to suck it up for a year, you've got to suck it up for a year. You get a new stadium out at the end of the day. This interview felt like it was standing on ceremony. It felt like he had to put all the information out there that he could to try and essentially save Malaga's bid. I personally don't think Malaga got anything to worry about. You know, it's all the other stuff you've got to factor into consideration. And, you know, it's not just the stadium, it's the infrastructure, it's the international airport, it's the amount of hotels, it's the training bases. So Malaga are on a good 2 feet anyway. This kind of like scared jump out approach to it, I think, makes things worse. I should actually be exploring what is possible rather than dreaming about keeping a stadium with 30,000 temporary seats in it, or it'd be 23,000 temporary seats, because I think that stand holds 7,000.
Yeah, something
it's
like
pretty
that.
Pie in the sky.
Yeah, if you know, I'm no architect. I've been to that stadium. I've watched the football there. I can't envisage with. I guess like the stands would go across the running track, which again I can't imagine is. I can imagine there's a lot of red tape there. Be interesting though, because you did just say, I was just going to pull you up on it a bit. You said the better option of Cordoba or Granada. Would you rather that, or you just mean like that's the more realistic option?
It's definitely the more realistic option, you know what I mean? And it's not unheard of. You know, and I imagine, you know, we look more recently with Marbella playing at Atletico Madrid, La Rosaleda. You know, I know it's a one-off, but people utilize those stadiums, those options when they need to.
Yeah.
Is it going to be easy to take a few thousand people to Granada every other weekend? No, it isn't. But
that is what it is.
It would mean that you get the stadium out of it, and it's a ready-made solution. That's probably where I'm aiming for. Again, I think what's happened here with the mayor is that he's got flustered and he started to promise things which I just don't think are possible. I think you can build a stadium around the athletics track and you can have temporary standing. Will you have near enough 30,000 seats there? Not a chance. We looked at what Real Zaragoza were going to do with a temporary stadium whilst they redeveloped La Romareda. Nowhere near that many numbers. And they talked about reduced capacity. You look at Barcelona. I think if Barcelona wanted to, they could have built a temporary stadium with 100,000 seats in it. They would have kept more money rather than going to, is it Montjuic, isn't it? The Olympic Stadium in Barcelona.
Yeah, I guess
you've got to work with what's in reality.
Yeah. And it, again, the one thing I noticed that wasn't mentioned in this press conference, and there seemed to be an idea that's dead and buried. They're not going to build a stadium away from the site of La Rosaleda now, are they? I know, because there was originally talk of perhaps somewhere out near the airport. That seems to be dead and buried. And I personally don't want to see that happen, because I like one of the great things of La Rosaleda is its neighborhood and where it's located, its proximity to the city. So even if we did get a shiny new stadium, I wouldn't want to leave that barrio. But the other thing you just listed off, like obviously some of the benefits of why Malaga would be a great host city, and like you said, it's all set up really, apart from having to do the stadium. But I think in this interview, De La Torre did make a good point, or certainly someone in the interview made a good point that I hadn't considered before. But of all the host cities in like this World Cup, Malaga is the one that's got the best connections to Morocco as well. It's I can see it. It's a point I haven't really considered before. If we're going to have this sort of, this World Cup where, you want a sort of sense of community a little bit, and obviously the other thing is Malaga isn't that far away from Portugal either. Obviously, Seville's a little bit closer there, but it's like you said, I'd be surprised if it's really, really under threat. I think the only thing that would jeopardize it is, some issue with development of the new stadium, whatever issues those could be.
The fact of the matter is that Malaga aren't in control of their own destiny here. People that aren't involved in the club are making those decisions and talking about relocating the team without really the team's inference. I'm sure they've got a say in it, but he can say that we're going to move Malaga Club de Football to the Athletic Stadium. Frankly, Malaga haven't got a choice, because the city will want to redevelop it. They'll want a stadium which is fit for purpose, not just for hosting Malaga games, but for hosting Spanish international football, for hosting World Cup matches, for putting on indoor concerts and things like that. It's not just about the football club, so to speak. It's about the wider economic situation in Malaga and its opportunity to host, big, massive events. We see the NFL, furthermore, getting more games in Europe. I think there's going to be one at the Bernabeu within the next couple of years or something like that. Stadiums aren't just for football anymore, unfortunately. They become multi-purpose venues, and that's what the city wants. The club are just going to have to be a willing participant in it.
Yeah, and obviously, like down this part of Spain in the summer, especially, you do get some like pretty big acts, or quite big acts. And I think the one thing perhaps that's lacking is like a big sort of arena and things like that. Mm-hmm. I know Robbie Williams did somewhere in Fuengirola. Was it last year or the summer before? I can't remember. But I know Bryan Adams is playing in Malaga quite soon. I think he might even be playing the place where they put the screens up for the playoff final. There's that attraction of getting perhaps, Bryan Adams is great fun and everything, but he's not, your box office these days. Maybe there would be opportunity to get, Coldplay and their shiny light show, things like that.
If you want to compete with Madrid and Barcelona's, not just on the football front, but on the economic front, Malaga and the province have got a massive opportunity to develop themselves into something which basically stretches their economic capability, and this is part of it. And that's why it's becoming the technological hub of Spain. It's why it's the fastest growing city in the country. You know, it is diversifying at a rate that, sorry, just to go off football for a second and go on to Spanish economics. It's diversifying at a rate that is not seen anywhere else in the country, really, which is great for Malaga, great for Andalusia, and, you know, hopefully good for the football club, because, again, ready-made football stadium, nice football team, hopefully new owners come knocking on your door thinking there's a project here.
Yeah, the Sheikh, though, as well, must, you know, if he was to come back and he just turned up and is like, oh, we've built you a new stadium, he'd be laughing, really. But anyway, we won't go down that path now. Let's go on a different path, Nick. Let's go up the path a few hundred kilometers up to Cartagena, because that's where Malaga will be heading this coming weekend, Saturday afternoon. Obviously, we'll start by talking about Cartagena. And, you know, we were just talking about big shots, Nick, you know, your Taylor Swifts and Coldplays that could come to La Rosaleda. But let's go to one of the big shots of Spanish Segunda coverage. Of course, as always, we have our previews of the team we're playing this coming weekend, and those previews are done by the Spanish Segunda podcast's very own Alex Fitzpatrick. So let's go over to him to give us the lowdown on Cartagena.
This weekend, Malaga travel to Cartagena on Saturday afternoon. I'll be there. I'm on my way to see the mighty Malaga, my second visit to Estadio Cartagena this season. And you've got to say, I know I say it sometimes on the show, that this is a good time to be playing this team. But really, come on, Cartagena are rock bottom of the division. 15 points, I think it is, that they have to their name this season in 27 games. So, yeah, this is the poorest team in the division by some country mile. They've made a number of winter signings, but nobody that you look at and think this is going to make any sort of difference. I'm sorry to say it, but Cartagena will be a third-tier side next season. The one position in which they excel is the goalkeeper, and it's not many times you'll hear this on the Garicast, but this guy can rival our Don Alfonso Herrero. He is one of the standout goalkeepers in the division. He's made numerous saves, and without him, Cartagena would probably already be down. That's Pablo Cuñat in goal, on loan from Levante. And if you can get past him, you'll almost certainly win the game, because this team doesn't have goals. That said, they scored 2 last weekend, both from the penalty spot, though, and in a 5-2 defeat away to Cádiz. Really, we should be talking about 3 points here for Malaga. I'm pretty confident that is what I will be seeing on Saturday night.
Very confident from Alex Fitzpatrick. And, you know, as always, if you want to keep up with all the news and gossip from the Spanish Segunda, definitely go and check out the Spanish Segunda podcast. You can get it in all the usual podcast places. And, you know, I was with Alex a couple of weeks ago in Malaga, and hopefully I can meet up with him again this weekend, because I am also going to Cartagena this Saturday. Well, I'm leaving 1 o'clock in the morning Saturday, so hopefully get a bit of sleep on the bus. I realized just when we were talking at the start, Nick, I hadn't really thought about this, that I've only done 2 away trips this year, and they've both been to naval cities in Spain. I'm only doing naval cities this year, it seems. That wasn't because obviously Ferrol's the sort of northern base. I think last time I went was with Alex Ashmore. It's a really cool little city. It's got a nice amphitheater right down by the sea. Nice little plazas. You know, I love a random quote from a Wikipedia page, Nick. Do you want to hear what Cartagena's claim to fame is in its opening paragraph?
Oh, always.
It's one of those just meaningless things, but it says, I quote, "As of January 2018, it has a population of 218,943 inhabitants. This makes Cartagena's Murcia's second largest municipality and Spain's 6th largest city, that is not a provincial capital. Someone was
Wow.
really cool that night working it out. Hopefully I'll get to see Alex Fitzpatrick, and yeah, it's a cool city. I'm really, really looking forward to getting back. Not looking forward to the bus journey there, but hopefully I can get some sleep there. So anyway, let's go to the football. Thoughts, Nick, on what Alex had to tell us first off?
Well, he's absolutely spot on, I think, with Cartagena. Maybe they've been punching above their weight for the last few seasons. When we were last in this division, they were challenging for the playoffs, if I remember rightly, with a very interesting brand of football and a pretty decent team.
And a good strike, Ruben Castro at one point as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And Alex Gaillard with him as well. And we thought, well, that sounds like a good thing. Let's bring them on board. And it didn't quite go to plan. No. But it just seems to be, like a lot of teams that come into the Spanish Segunda that maybe are, I use air quotes here for people not watching on YouTube, punching above their weight. Eventually you do run out of steam, and being a club their size means you can't be as competitive as everybody else, especially when people come and shark your players and take you off your stars on free transfers and things like that. So it's not a surprise to see where they are right now. I think this is one of the teams that we all sort of tipped to being around the relegation zone at the start of the season. And, it's a shame because, like you say, they are a very interesting club. Cartagena is a very interesting place. As you've already mentioned, it's the home to the Spain's Mediterranean fleet. It's a previous Roman dwelling as well, if I remember rightly. Big historical factor to it. So it'll be a loss when they do eventually get relegated from Segunda, because that is exactly where they're heading.
Yeah, and also I should have mentioned at the start, the other devastating news I had was when we went last time with Alex, and Alex's dad was with us actually, and Russ Pierce of Seagulls Over Spain. We tried to find a bar as close to the ground as possible. So we did find bigote, which for those that don't know is the Spanish word for mustache. And it was a mustache themed bar. And I've since been told it has closed down. So I'm a bit gutted about that. So fuck off. But yeah, it's
by another team from Murcia this season, with Real Murcia doing very well in the Primera this season, chasing Antequera. So 1 in, 1 out for the Murcia region, maybe.
Yeah, I definitely trade an Alicante though, and Hercules going up. That's still that's probably my dream ground to visit in Spain at the moment. It's the one.
Hercules not far off. I think
yeah, they're up there,
7th at the minute. So in with a shout.
Because that's the big derby there, isn't it? I didn't realize till this season quite how passionate a derby that is. Hercules against Real Murcia, because I thought Real Murcia were sort of a newish club, but I'm guessing they followed on from the old Murcia that got to the top league.
It's definitely not Hercules and Intercity. I think that one's definitely not on the radar. Though did I see Anthony Modeste as signed for Intercity in January, which they are just very good at. They've got some kind of pull factor. I don't know what it is, but they just keep signing.
They've got
mid-noughties superstars.
Yeah, I guess they've got a reputed city in Alicante, and the other thing they have, I don't know this season, but I really, really like their shirts. I always liked this. The black and gold was cool. Bit MLS-y, but that's different for Spain. But anyway, we're talking about that Primera stuff. We've done that all last year. Let's move on and talk about, like you said, a team that I think is, it's looking nailed on. They'll go down. I'll just reel off some of the things. I'm sure Alex mentioned some of them. I should say, by the way, he really sort of put down Cartagena there, who are the worst form team in the league in 2025. Do you want to guess who's second?
Is it Malaga? By any chance?
It is indeed Malaga. We are the 2 worst teams since New Year. So, it's
worth
quite
getting on a bus at 1 a.m. format. It's worth getting on a bus at 1 a.m.
That's what I keep telling myself. Yeah, they are 4 points off. Well, sorry, they're 4 points off 21st place. So that sums up how far they're down. They're 15 points to I've got it mixed up there, so ignore that. I was reading something wrong then. They've lost their last 4 games. They've scored 1 goal in 663 minutes of football, and that was a penalty. I suppose the one thing in their favour is I noticed their last 2 home games, they'd only lost 1-0. I think one of them was to Oviedo, and I'm going to say Cordoba for the other, but I'm not 100% confident in that. They've conceded the most goals in the league. They've conceded 47, which is 6 more than Cordoba, who is the second most on 41. They've got a minus 30 goal difference. They've not won since the 9th of December. And even then, they beat a 10-man Sporting Gijon. Interesting symmetry here, because I did sort of click on that game. The person sent off in that game for Sporting Gijon was Ruben Yanez, formerly of Malaga. What's his significant link to Cartagena? Do you know?
Oh, I wouldn't even know where to start. I know he didn't play there, did he? Before he came to Malaga?
He made his debut for Malaga at the Cartagena game me and Alex went to, or certainly his league debut for Malaga.
Replacing if Reina, if I remember rightly.
Finally, when we'd had enough of Manolo Reina, and he was very good. And me and Alex, in that ground, you are very close to the pitch in the away end. You can be pretty much, but we were right behind the goal, so we were quite impressed with him. Interesting stat, and the other thing I picked up on was they are the third oldest. They have the third oldest average age in the league, and the 2 above them are Eldense and Racing Ferrol, who of course are also in the relegation zone. And it did make me think of the year we got relegated. We had a pretty old team as well, so it's not the way to go. Nick, we usually sort of go through their sort of, dare I use an American term, roster. Any notable names jumping out of you, or anyone you want to highlight from them? I know Alex mentioned the goalie there, which comparing him to Alfonso Herrero, sacrilege, but no, I have seen some highlights of these guys. He does look very good.
Brave on this podcast. I suppose that the 3 that immediately jump out on the page are the 3 ex-Malaga boys. You've obviously got Luis Munoz, former Malaga captain. I don't think he plays that often, but he's on the roster, so to speak.
While we're talking about him, just quickly, I think you're right. He doesn't play that often, but just again to sum up how bad things are going for Cartagena, he is their joint top goal scorer with 3 goals.
That absolutely says everything you need to know, doesn't it? And there is Kiko Olivas, who's obviously he wasn't a Malaga regular. In fact, never made an appearance for the first team, but is I think he's an Antequera boy, but was part of Atletico Malagueño or Malaga B back in the day. And as of January, a return to Cartagena for Javier Delmas, who obviously we signed him from Cartagena. He signed from Ferrol on a free transfer as well, so he's back there too. The one thing I'm going to have to break some bad news for you, Matt, is I know you have a love for a certain player from Ceuta last season, who I think we were all quite impressed by, and we're quite surprised to see him go to Cartagena in Cedric. Not there anymore. Moved on.
I can't remember where he went, because I was going to mention him and I realized he wasn't there, and I forgot to check where he'd gone. Yeah, I liked him a lot.
Is it Moriense in Port? Is that how you say it in Portugal?
No, yes, I know the team. There's probably some funny noises in the middle, but yes. To that one, yeah. There's another Malaguista as well, isn't it? I don't know if you mentioned Pedro Alcala, who's the captain, I think.
I did not know.
He started at Malaga, and I think he's, according to Wikipedia, he's got 1 game for Malaga's senior team, but he's from Mazaron, which weirdly I went to the first summer I lived in Spain, which is somewhere between Murcia and Cartagena. It's a nice little town. I got a friend that lives nearby there. So he's from there. So he's back home. There's 3 players I was going to highlight, apart from the ones you've mentioned. I forgot about Nicolas Sipcic, who, if you remember, I saw play twice in a week last time, because I saw him play for Cartagena live, and then on the Wednesday, or maybe the other way round, maybe the Wednesday before, he played against Wales for Montenegro in the pissing rain out in Montenegro. So I don't see him. Right? There's Damian Musto, who has the most yellow cards in the league, so I thought I'd highlight that. But this is the guy I want to know more about, and I couldn't really dig much more on him. Gaston Valles. He's Uruguayan, born in Montevideo, His youth career started at Defensor Sporting, and then weirdly he jumped to Atletico Benidorm. He moved from Uruguay to Atletico Benidorm, and then he moved to Vélez Malaga, and then to Espanyol B, and played for their senior team, and now he's here. Just seems like a mad, weird career, and I couldn't really find. Yeah, the particularly the jump from Uruguay to Benidorm, which obviously must have been, I don't know, his parents moved to Spain or something. Because it didn't strike me as, because he didn't play senior football in Uruguay, so yeah, and it seems like he's playing for Cartagena, and when I sort of, I was quite intrigued by him, so I tried to find out a bit more. He did play like a few games for Espanyol this season, like the senior team, so yeah, I was quite curious about him.
Well, maybe when they looked at Roberto and thought we can maybe afford to send him out on loan for a bit now that we've got somebody in to replace him. But it's a tapestry of a team. To be fair, it's got all the hallmarks of a team that are definitely trying to do something to stave off the inevitable. Like the two that got me as well was Oscar Clemente, who the last time we saw him play against Malaga was for Las Palmas. In the season that they were promoted and we went the other way. And another name that just pops out of the team sheet to me always is whenever I see a Spanish player with the name Andy, it just is Andy Rodriguez.
He's the joint top goal scorer with Luis Munoz, if I remember rightly. When I saw their squad, and like there's so many lone players in there, it's a bit like if you look on paper, it looks like this is a better version of Mirandés, but obviously it's not. It's the same. Mirandés have pulled off that strategy much better, it seems. And also we should mention the coach has only been there just over, I think, even a month, pretty much bang on a month. Guillermo Fernandez Romo, who of course we sort of dueled with last season because he was a Ibiza manager for a chunk of last season down the well until, I don't know if you remember, they sacked him in April just before. Remember when they were sort of crumbling and they wanted a bit of boost before the playoffs? But yeah, I'm not going to read his career out, but flipping heck, he's done a tour of the Spanish lower leagues. He's been everywhere, and a whole host. Like he's been at, I think the biggest club he's probably been at Racing Santander, like when they're in the 3rd division. But yeah, he's really been to the backwaters and back. But yeah, they, like you said, if looking at the names on paper, I don't know. I really like Cartagena, maybe because I think there is a little bit of affiliation when I think sometimes you've been to the places and people are quite nice there. But yeah, they were always when they got promoted, they were one of those clubs that were a bit of a surprise package the first time in Segunda, and they've been there I think 4 years now, and yeah, just really like them. It's
it'd be like Barrow getting to the Championship, wouldn't it? That's the sort of levels that we'd talk about in similarity.
You've got the Navy link as well there as well, haven't you? They've
both got submarines on their kits as well, so yeah, it's an maybe they should get like a little sister club, parent club thing going on. Maybe quite interesting.
That's a long way to go from Cartagena to Barrow, I can say that. Just quickly, I think I said to you before we press record, I'd written here, recap the last game at La Rosaleda against Cartagena. And then I was like, oh, I don't remember it, actually. I quickly watched the highlights back. I seem to recall it as the David Larrubia slowly becoming our best player for about 2 or 3 months and being brilliant. And Nelson Monte scored a goal. I was going to say a rare goal, but they're not very rare these days. That might even be, no, I think it was his 2nd goal of the season for us then. A nice tap in. I don't know if you remember anything else of that game.
I remember it being a lot closer than we thought it was. And again, at the time, we were sort of like riding on high on this, wonderful win-draw streak that we seem to find ourselves in. And, Cartagena have been marooned down there for a long time. I think we took this as a bit of a shock, to be honest, because they came and played well. They had a goal ruled out offside. They had a lot of opportunities where I actually thought we performed quite poorly, and we were lucky to come away with the win. But yeah, it's one of those. I think it was also we had a little meet up as well, if I remember rightly. We had a few people over for this one, if I recall. So yeah, a lot of affinities with Cartagena.
Yeah. I did sort of look back on the game I went to in Cartagena as well. I didn't watch the highlights because I remembered some of this. So I remembered Ruben Yanez starting. But the other thing I remember about it was it wasn't his debut, but I think it was the first time we were sort of forced to start Christian Gutierrez. And I remember him being brilliant. And I think he set up the goal because we went 1-0 up with 10 men. And it was an own goal. And we tried to hold on for dear life. And Alex Gaillard scored, actually. And we lost 2-1. But
was this the one where I think, was it Victor Olmo got injured as well? And he just never saw him again?
It might be. That does ring a bit of a bell. We should say as well that, switching towards Malaga a bit, I don't know what the sales have been like, but there were 700 away tickets on sale. And I do know, because I'd seen it on social media and in things to do with the Pena, that's just the away end, which is like the lower tier. I believe like people have bought tickets in the upper tier as well because they were on sale for home fans early. And it sounds like there's a lot already. So I'd be quite interested to see how busy that away end is. I suppose, despite it being, if you're driving 5 to 6 hours, it's about 7 hours on a bus. It is one of Malaga's nearest away games. So, it's not like that local league stuff this year. So it'll be interesting to see how many people are going there. And I don't know if you noticed on Twitter, I saw some people, Cartagena fans responding to Malaga fans and being very sort of self-deprecating and being like, oh, you'll probably have more fans than us and we'll probably be chanting for Malaga. And it's...
It happens when you sort of like end up being, cut off and accepting the inevitable, and you kind of just want to write the season off, which means you just take every game as it comes and just assume the worst. Is probably what they're doing. To be fair, I'm a Blackpool fan. I've been there.
Yeah, we've done it on this podcast for a few years until last year, just sort of mocked us. Let's we've talked about a whole host of different players. Let's talk about the players we think or we're hoping we'll see grace the pitch for Malaga. What colour will we wear? Blue and white in this, or would we wear the gold? I'm not sure. I think the blue and white would be clear. Or maybe the white stripes though will get in the way.
Might even be the purple.
Yeah,
purple kit could be a go.
I don't mean the band. I don't mean the white stripes are gonna pitch invade. It'd be interesting. Now that'd be a story to tell on the way back. Anyway, but there's a few sort of selection issues we should perhaps mention here, apart from some of the injuries we've discussed over previous pods, like Luis Me is still sort of not fully fit and is in the gym and stuff, but there's still no Nelson Monte apparently. Carlos Purga is suspended after the last game. Mostly he had that red card, which, to be honest with you, I forgot about until this afternoon. I was like, oh yeah, he must have got the bookings. And then I suddenly had a flashback to him, flying through something. Even I said in the stadium straight away, I was like, oh well, bye. Because there were some people that seemed to be like, oh, that was a bit harsh. Like, was it?
I still maintain it was harsh for the challenge in terms of it. I would have say it's a definite yellow. It's a harsh red for me, but he's gone in. He's committed that late in the game. So it was never going to get overturned. Let's put it that way. But obviously creates a lot of selection headaches for us, given that our defence is becoming slowly but surely depleted. Would be the word I would use.
Yeah, and perhaps this is a good chance to mention as well that not only is it depleted, but there's a lot of our defence, pretty much, actually, not a lot, our pretty much whole defence they're one yellow card away from being suspended for the next game. So Victor...
Everyone except the one you would think. Because I would, if you would have asked me that question without knowing, if you would have asked me that question without looking at the screen, and I can see the players that are all on 4 yellow cards, Einar Galileo would not have been the one that I would have assumed would be not on 4 yellow cards.
Yeah, that's very true, actually. So, the list is Victor, Dani Sanchez, Alex Pastor, Joaquin Gabilondo, and the injured Nelson Monte. Obviously, Carlos Purga, there's no point even discussing that. That'll be Joaquin. I know we've been a bit down on him in the past few weeks, but, that's an obvious choice. I guess, it'll be Einar and Pastor in the middle. And yeah, I think I know you guys, I think, spoke about him on the review pod, by the way. If you want to hear more about our game against who did we play? Levante this past weekend, go and check out the review pod. I think Danny Sanchez has got our left back position sewn up at the moment.
Yeah, he really has, and I think that's Luke spoke at length about it when we caught up earlier on in the week, and it's a factor of two things for me. Danny Sanchez is pushing himself to be a better footballer, be a better player, and he's really taking his chance at a level he's not played at before. But also combined with the fact that I think, unfortunately for Victor Garcia, as much as he was a high caliber player for us last season in Primera, I think he has been found out at this level, and unfortunately for him, he's going to have a season being second fiddle. And certainly with the way that we want to play, having a player that can get you out of situations fast, Danny Sanchez is the player that's probably better at doing that for us. And he's passionate as well.
Yeah. I'd even argue we'd said that we've had a really bad start to 2025. He'd be in my maybe I'm trying to think. I can only think of one player I think has played better than him so far in 2025, and I was going to mention him shortly. But Danny Sanchez there for me. I guess the other conversation, obviously, you're our in-house Manu Molina fanboy. How are you enjoying the Ramon Manu combo? Because we don't know what's going to happen when Luismi gets back. How are you finding those two together?
It's interesting, and I spoke about Ramon myself, and just watching the way he plays. I think he does take that bit of a shine off Manu Molina and makes him the bit part man in that midfield. He's not getting that opportunity to do the stuff that he likes to do, because I think he's more replacing Luismi like for like, rather than the Ramon replacing Luismi, and he gets to be that forward-centric player in that midfield. It'll be interesting when Luismi does come back, because I think, dare I say, that in Pellicer's head, if he's got a fully functioning Ramon alongside a dogged Luismi, then that's a combination that really can't be competed with. So then you're going to have to sacrifice somebody else to keep Manu Molina in the team. And will he take Larrubia, Lebete out of the mix? I don't think he would.
No, and obviously we talked about Manu Molina's sort of, particularly his running numbers this year have been very good. I will say, by the way, obviously I didn't do the review pod with me. I did watch Ramon quite closely on Saturday night. He was very good. He was, his movement is brilliant. He would have been my Biznaga, actually.
He was my Biznaga as well.
He was excellent. Just like I was watching him, like he's so like aware and like looking. He's not quite to that level he was when we were getting relegated, and he tried to single-handedly save us, but he looked fit as well. He looks in good. I think you're right, though. I think I'd say if we're talking about teachers' pets, or I'd say him and Haitam are Pellicer's darlings, really, the way he speaks about them. So
You don't come back from injury and come back into the starting lineup and take the captain's armband if there's something not about you. Yeah. And it was just the way he, like you say, he made things look effortless against Levante with what he did. And as much as I enjoy watching Manu Molina, not so much as he used to, but spray balls around with that Pirlo-esque swagger about him, all the run he does. The fact that Ramon can do that at a canter and not have to put the yards in because he picks the right passes, he creates the passage of play perfectly without putting loads of effort in either. That's the thing. He makes it look really, really easy. Yeah, and if you can build your team around a player like that, then you're halfway there.
Yeah, there's zero pace there whatsoever. But he's such a. I always think he looks like an old-fashioned footballer. I mean as the biggest compliment. He's so cool to watch him, and also fair play to Manu. I think so. I really like Manu Molina as well, and I actually think he's adjusting his game to accommodate Ramon, and I think that's very selfless of him and very good. And he's trying to be the Luismi character, which it might not be as his natural character. But yeah, I really like those two together. But I totally agree. That's what I was going to put to you. I think it will become Luismi Ramon if Ramon stays fit. And I should say, I did check this, that Ramon has not played 90 minutes of football since April 2023 in a 1-0 win over
Cartagena.
Cartagena. Yeah, it's a bit another nice link there. Yeah, and I guess we'll do the usual. Does Chupete start in a second? But I just the other thing I was going to mention is the left wing. There's no obvious candidate there at the moment, I think, because obviously Kevin. And by the way, I know, I love the guy, and I felt very sorry for him. He obviously took some stick from the stands on Saturday because apparently he left the pitch very upset, and he would have been my chumbo this week. He was awful. Like, even though he came off the bench, he was that bad, I thought, and I felt very sorry for him. But so I think he will be protected because obviously he's had a bit of a wobble. And then who have we got? Romani or Antonito? So I guess Antonito's the obvious one, I'm guessing there, but yeah, I guess it is quite obvious now I think about it. Romani's not really getting there, is he?
Romani's a luxury that I don't think we afford to have this year, and I think we balked at the idea that Libete was going to be injured for a lot longer than he was. I was surprised that he actually sticked around in January, to be honest, because I thought he would be one of those players that we might actually move on, given his lack of game time and the wage he must be on. But going back to the conversation that me and Luke had, and not to bridge too far into the conversation we're about to have about Chupete, but I think Antonito is a mixture of two thoughts. Do we play him because we know we're going to lose him, and you get the best out of him whilst he's here, and he gets a good send off and see you later? Since the turn of the year, I think his head's not really been massively in the game, apart from that first half against Deportivo.
Yeah,
he doesn't feel like he's been there. And obviously, there's a lot of talk about him signing a pre-contract with Newcastle at the minute. Is he too held up on, that side of things that he's not focusing on the game? For me, I'd be looking at the form that both Larrubia and Libete are showing. Libete, especially more recently, growing in confidence every single game, saying, right, you two boys, you're my wingers now, and let's accommodate Chupete and Dione together, not rely on a 35-year-old striker to be your main central focal point, but have Dione playing as the foil for Chupete. I think that's a dangerous combination. And I don't see how Pace here can't see that. You're going to have to use him. You can't have a player who scored 21 goals for the reserve side and not use him, especially against bottom of the league, but also put him in there with someone that can give him a bit more protection, because he will be targeted. These older heads will look at a 20-year-old kid and say, I'm going to fuck you up. I'm going to make you scared of me. So put a bully boy in next to him. Put a Dione in next to him who can go in there and get in people's ribs.
There could be an argument as well that maybe an away game, especially at somewhere like Cartagena, who are obviously struggling, might even be better for Chupete, where there's not that pressure of, every time he's warming up on the bench and the crowd sort of get excited about him coming on. It might be good for him. Just quickly, I was going to pull you back on that point you made there about Libete. So, by the way, when I said there's only one player that's been better in 2025, he's my player since the turn of the year. I think he's been excellent. Obviously, this week he was the main guest on Area Malaguista, and he did say, they asked him about his form at the moment, and he said that he is preferring playing behind the striker. So it'll be interesting if Pellicer would move him from there, because he has been so good in that position. I can see what you are mentioning with Dione and there's too many etes here. Chupete works with, I think that could work too, but I don't know if he.
I like them both in behind there, though, because I will always say that Libete and Larrubia, wherever they're in the team, that they don't play as wingers as conventionally as, say, like an Antonito or a Kevin does. They're very much like double tens in that way, playing off the striker. And that's when you need your reliance on Danny Sanchez and Carlos Puga to be your advancing right backs and left backs. You know what I mean? Having that dynamic. So again, I'm not really against that, and having someone like Dione going in there, or even like I was going to say Danny Lorenzo, but he's obviously out injured as well. But Aaron Shaw Maloney, even maybe playing Ramon a bit more advanced, just to create that connection for him. But there's 21 goals this season. Again, I get that there's the need for Atletico Malagueño to get out of their league at this moment in time. But, after you've not brought a striker in January, then you've got to use them whilst you can.
Yeah, totally agree. I think that ship sailed now, the Atletico Malagueño argument. I think if we'd signed the striker and, you know, there was something there maybe, but yeah, he's the first team player for me now. And that's, you know, if he doesn't come up, especially if we're playing at home and Atletico Malagueño are playing at home, I get him playing for them then, but otherwise he's got to be treated as a first team player. That I think will give him confidence. He's not in this weird limbo. Yeah, and it's, you know, it's sink or swim with him then, isn't it? It's, you know, he's 20. If he's good enough, you could say you put putting pressure on him, but you know, that's football, isn't it? There is pressure. It's sink or swim time, and you know, I still think he'll very much swim. Hopefully he can continue swimming or start to swim. We've seen glimpses of, we've seen a bit of paddling.
Yes, and there's no better place to start swimming than a naval town.
Yeah. Although I don't know, is that a bad place to do it? Lots of ships coming in, maybe, I don't know. Anyway, we'll start to wrap things up. I should perhaps say we'll finish with a question. Pellicer said this week, I don't know if you saw his press comments today. He also, two things I noted. There's one serious point here, but the one I liked was, and again, it might be one of those things that doesn't really translate well into English. He called himself, and I forgot the context, he called himself, "I'm a peaceful warrior," which I liked. But he also said, "For me, this is a final." Oh, come on. Spanish football, and they love of calling things final, is mad, especially Pellicer. If he's doing it, he's usually calm personified. But how big is this game, do you think, Nick? Like, getting 3 points here? Because, of course, the week after we play another relegation-bound team in Tenerife at home. You know, anything but a win here, I think, would be a disappointment, wouldn't it?
Yeah, I think anything outside of back-to-back wins, you know, especially when we've had the start to 2025 that we've had, would be a disappointment and would be a surprise if I'm being, well, not a surprise, but it would certainly be, you know, unexpected. This is an opportunity to really, you know, put some distance between yourselves. And I was speaking to Luke about this. You know, I was talking about Deportivo beating Almeria at the weekend and then maybe I'd be on a late playoff charge. We're only 4 points behind them. And I don't have the same feelings about Malaga. Do you know what I mean? Whereas if you look over your shoulder, I think there's 7 points between that last relegation place where that Eldense occupy and Malaga. Still a nice buffer, but if you add 6 more points to that, and you know, Burgos and Castellón maybe slip up, I can't really see Ferrol picking up loads of points. Eldense neither. The more you can do to hit that 50-point mark, the earlier, the better. And, you know, 6 points would stick us on to 38 points. Yeah. So then only 12 points to get in 12 games.
To be honest with you, like, you are right. We've got to aim for 50, definitely. But last season, you needed 46 points, I think. Or no, I'm pretty certain it was 46 and the team went down was 45. Personally, like, looking at this league, I think it's going to be less this year. So I personally think we need 4 wins before the end of the season. So like you said, for me, if honestly, like, I do agree with you, 6 points was 100% what we should be targeting. I might put a handshake on 4 points if it was offered to me now, just to pull away a bit. But yeah, I think we've got to be going for 6 points. And yeah, I think... Yeah.
And it doesn't get any easier in March. Let's not forget. This is you've got to, you know, we look past it and say, well, this is a big 6 points because you've got Almeria followed by Cadiz. You know, Almeria obviously up there, Cadiz, who have seemingly turned a corner and picked up a lot of form recently. So, you know, you're thinking, right, well, let's get through these to get through that. And then let's have a look what's on the other side, which is, again, I think some better games. I can't quite remember. I know that Cordoba is on the first weekend of April, but
yeah, if we can get 6 points over the next 2 weeks or 2 match days, I think we're pretty much there. I would be very confident of us. You know, I'm pretty confident still we'll stay up, but that would be like, okay, let's just, you know, we can have a jog to the line then rather than real sort of panic stations. which I also learned yesterday is a naval term, panic stations. I don't know, from the Football Cliches podcast. I knew I'd heard that somewhere. So that's a nice place to finish with more naval references. So I will say thank you, Nick Bell. Do we have anything we need to plug or put forward?
You may have noticed on our social medias that Chris Marquez is looking for Malagistas around the world. So, I think today's was the Netherlands. So,
yeah, it was the Dutch today.
so I noticed today.
I noticed we get a weird amount of listeners in Singapore, but not many responded to the Singapore.
Yes.
So if you're from Singapore, please let us know. We love you.
A bit of an anomaly on that one, but yes, no, it's he's cracking on with that. Luke says that he's going to look to provide a minute by minute this weekend. So if you want to follow the game on social media, on Twitter or X, then head across there and he'll be able to give you all the details from the game that you're going to be at, Matt, as well.
Yeah, I'll do, I'll try and sort out the sound quality. I'll have a test run tomorrow. I'll try and do a Vamos a Estadio Cartagena as well. This is a bit of a landmark for me. It'll be the only ground I've watched Malaga play in away twice, or the first one. I'm sure there's many more to come. But yeah, that seems cool. So, and also, again, like I said earlier, if you want to listen to what went on last weekend with our draw with Levante, Luke and Nick recorded a review show, and there's probably a bit more news on that one because there was more news. So if you want to get a bit more, go and check that out. But I will say thank you, Nick Bell.
Cheers very much, Matt. Always appreciate talking Malaga Club de Football with you.
Yeah, I was trying to think what the opposite of ahoy is, but I don't know it, so I will Google that later. And I'll say thank you, the listeners. Thank you for joining us again. Go and subscribe, listen to podcasts, tell a friend, etc. Follow us on social media. There's nothing else called the Geary Cast, so just type it into Google, you'll find us. And we'll see you soon. Adios and vamos Malaga.